Hey, it's Hilary. We're taking Net Time on the road today. I'm here in Hamilton at the Taurito Maiaha 53rd Annual Conference. Today I'll be speaking with some of the presenters about what they're sharing at the conference. We'll be back right after this. Thank you for joining me on Net Time on the road today. Would you like to start by introducing yourself?
Kia ora, I'm Amanda Higgins and I work at Campbell Kindergarten down in Wellington. So I've just come up to the conference today with Nicola. We're presenting together on our thesis that we have both done separately, but they're both on the topic of e-portfolios. Mine focuses on parent engagement and communication between families and teachers, and I'll pass you on to Nicola.
Hi, I'm Nicola Goodman and I work at Grace Kindergarten in Wellington, and I'm here with Amanda, and we've worked alongside throughout our master's process, which has been really awesome. And my research is on e-portfolios and looking at children's engagement, so how they're engaging and contributing to their learning and what that kind of looks like going forward and how we can get them engaging further.
Kia ora koutou, my name is Dr. Bradley Hennigan. I'm an Education Manager at Nelson Tasman Kindergartens. My talk today is sociological. I'm looking at the current context that most of us exist in, a highly individualised context where the choice of being an individual is forced upon us rather than actually a choice itself. And I'm looking also at technological change and resistances to technological change and some of the attitudes of early adopters. And then I've done some research, empirical research, that has looked at what are some of the narratives that early adopters use and what are some of the narratives that resistors use, and then binding it all together into a social comment.
Hi, I'm Kate Highfield, an academic from Australia. I research how technology is changing children's play and their learning. So today we've been looking at apps that can promote really good thinking. We're looking at apps that promote higher order thinking. That's advanced learning beyond just drill and practice. In particular, we're looking at apps where children can be the creators of their learning rather than just consuming pre-made content.
About your research, what were you covering in your talk today?
I think with the research I found is that e-portfolios are such an exciting kind of new phase that we're moving into, and everyone's really keen to get on board. And so I think kind of what I found with this study and another study I've done is just getting that support for teachers, like getting teachers really enthused and passionate behind it so that they can engage children, because children's at the heart of what we do. And so we're just wanting to utilise them to their very best because they're such an incredible tool that we want to just add to our little toolkit and just empower teachers even more to kind of just take it that next step in a way, and just including children more and including parents, and just getting them really well utilised, I think.
So with my research, I think what really stood out for me was the possibilities of the engagement between the parents, the wider whānau and the teachers, and how it really did create community in a whole different way that we have ever seen before. But also keeping in mind that while it builds relationships, it's also thinking about the learning that happens and thinking about how we write our stories and how we comment with parents and the wider whānau, that, as Nicola said, about it's the children at the heart of the matter. So thinking about how our comments add to children's learning and keep developing that. So, the possibilities are endless, really. I think the more we can imagine, the more we can do on it. Yeah.
One of the key points that I'm making is that culture is individualised and that the parents of today have different pressures on them, that the way that people communicate with one another nowadays is digital, it's disembodied, but it's also intimate in the way that you can be right in someone's pocket or their hand, and having that conversation with them. And I'm advocating that early childhood education, if we want to engage whānau, we need to really strongly consider e-portfolios as a method for doing that, because that's what our parents of today are doing. They're choosing to communicate in digital ways rather than specifically kanohi ki te kanohi or face-to-face. And the one should lead nicely into the other, and possibly the other way around too.
What did you find surprising from the research that you did?
Well, I didn't actually find much surprising. I guess, what did surprise me was when I looked at the literature on workplace resistance to technological change, that the words or the narrative of our resistor in the research was pretty much word for word what the research was saying. And I thought, wow, that's too much of a coincidence. And the research I looked at was outside of early childhood education. It was more in management and it was in industry. So having the same narratives across both both sectors seemed to me to be quite surprising.
Yeah. Cool. Well, good luck for your talk today.
Got it.
Thanks for joining us. I think a lot of educators would like to hear more about what kind of apps foster creativity rather than just consumption.
I think it's really tricky for educators because there are so many thousands of apps in the App Store, and it's really about working out what's right for you in your context. It might be that creating movies or books or comic strips is what works for your children. It's really about knowing your context and then choosing the technology that goes with that context. It's easy to start by the app and say, wow, I found this amazing app, it's so exciting. Whereas in fact, we need to start with good teaching, good pedagogy, and then use the technology to support and extend that learning and that pedagogy.
In terms of teachers and parents who are worried about screen time, what kind of advice would you give them if they were wondering, if they wanted to learn more about that?
So when we're talking about screen time, we're actually talking about two things. We're talking about the amount of screen time, but we're also talking about the quality of what children are doing on screen. So in terms of amounts, we need to make sure that they have a balance of play. So a balance of physically active play, creative play, dramatic play, where technology play is just a part of that. But when we're looking at the quality of what children are doing, then we need to think about what are the values you hold. So, for example, I don't like violent apps. So 5 minutes of a violent app is too much. Whereas 2 hours of an app where a child is creating a book is absolutely fine for me. Because I think we've got to both have quality use of technology as well as an appropriate quantity.
The name of your talk was... What was the name of it?
That's a good question. You're asking hard questions. I've given 2 talks today.
The keynote.
Oh, the keynote, yes.
Yes.
So I had the honour of presenting a keynote today, and we called that keynote Enriched, Engaging and Excellent Education. Is there an app for that?
And is there an app for that?
Well, there is no substitute for an amazing teacher, but we can certainly use apps or technology to augment and extend what we're doing in our classrooms.
Thank you so much for talking with me today. We'll be putting a link in the description of this video so that people can watch your entire keynote because it was just amazing. Yeah.
Thank you, that's fantastic.
Thanks.
I hope they enjoy it. Hey, interesting. Do we have any amazing teachers who work with children under 2? Brilliant. You guys are having the most amazing change of all time, and I'll come to that in a moment. So as we talk about mobile and tablet devices, under 2s, don't switch off because you guys are actually at the forefront of research at the moment.